Welcome to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers with Linda Prio. Will it be possible to remain in my home as I age? Do I feel safe in my home? How do I figure out how much support I will need when my health needs start to change? What if I decide to move into a community instead? Which community will meet my needs now and in the future? Who will play a role in helping me with decision making? Do you ask yourself these same questions? Aging in Place Strategies and Answers can help you gain practical knowledge that will help you create your own Aging in Place roadmap. If you are already a care partner, a power of attorney, or in crisis mode with your Aging in Place strategy, you will learn what you need to know that you don't know. For over 20 years, I have been marketing Aging in Place services to clients and educating families and healthcare professionals in how to put aging in place strategies into place. When you utilize aging in place, you are allowed to choose where you want to live and make those decisions so that you can retain your quality of life. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers. If you have not listened to my podcast called You Can Do It with Polly Lemire, a Tiny Habits coach, please do. You're going to learn how my habits or your habits can create behaviors that can affect our mindset. And we're going to talk about that more, but that is a pretty big opening sentence. You're going to learn how your habits could be creating behaviors that can be affecting your mindset. And I have to think about this for me as well. So this is self-analysis time for Linda Prio. In that podcast, Polly gave us the secret sauce to successfully changing our habits that have led us to behaviors that are working against us. Polly says, first, you decide, not someone else decide or tell you what you need to do, but you decide the task that you want to complete. The you in this sentence is the most important thing. And she gave me the example of the stack of papers that is getting taller by the day. The second thing you do is to create a prompt. Maybe the prompt for you could be, after I eat breakfast, I will go over to the stack of papers and pick up the piece of paper that's on top. When you practice your prompt and complete it, so you've had your breakfast, you go over to the stack of papers and you have lifted up the first piece of paper on that stack, you have now completed a task. And Polly tells us that this is the time that we take a moment to celebrate that beginning so that you get a dopamine hit in your brain. Maybe you ring a bell. Maybe you shake a pom-pom. Maybe you tell yourself you're a rock star. Maybe you push play on the Rocky theme song. Or maybe you do a fake chest bump or a high five. But get that dopamine hit. Polly also taught us that your brain really doesn't distinguish between a small victory or a large victory. And I think that can be really key because I know this sounds almost too simple to be true, but neuroscience and research done by BJ Fogg says this works. So I'm just going to say that you go back to the beginning. You practice your prompt, the new prompt that you made to try to correct behaviors that are happening in your life, and then you celebrate it because it makes you feel good. And when you feel good, you're going to keep going. Now, Polly reminded us that life will get in your way. You may have a doctor's appointment. You may not have breakfast that day. You might have an early meeting. But once you have a prompt in place, you know what that prompt is, you accept that life happened yesterday, and you start again. So I'm going to give you an example from my own life because I'm learning new things too. I injured my foot in the fall and was not able to stay on my morning walk routine. When I was able to start exercising again, I practiced my prompt or my tiny habit. My tiny habit is, before getting in bed, I set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. Woohoo! I celebrate me. I just set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. That was my prompt. When my alarm goes off, I get out of bed. Once I'm up, the next prompt that I made is to get dressed in my workout clothes right away. And I celebrate myself. Hey, I'm up at 5:30. I've got my clothes on. And then my next goal is to walk out the door. And when I get back from my walk, I reward myself with my coffee. I am not allowed to have my coffee until I walk. So I have created prompts that helped me to create new habits, that helped me to get out the door, that then helped me to reward myself with the coffee because I did what I said I was going to do. When you celebrate these tiny victories, then you're able to move on to the next step. And before you know it, your prompt or your tiny habit has changed your behavior, just like it's changed my behavior and will change future behaviors that I have when I put it into practice. And so hopefully that stack of papers that Polly gave us as an example is going to be growing smaller each time you practice your prompt or your tiny habit. Now, I'm guessing that I may have some listeners who doubt the validity of the Stanford research done by B.J. Fogg. So I'm going to challenge you to get his book, and then I'm going to challenge you to check it out for yourself. I might also have some listeners who are maybe willing to give it a try. So I'm excited for you if you are willing to give it a try. But if you feel like you need more instruction, then I'm going to have you tune into a new channel, a new YouTube channel that Polly and I created called Seniors Can We Talk? Polly and I launched this new YouTube channel to help seniors or those who are thinking about retiring develop a growth mindset and to live a more enriching, enthusiastic, and energetic existence with the longevity that we have been given. Some of you have heard me say this before. My mother lived to 100, and now that gives me 33 years to stay curious, develop a growth mindset, and try to finish well. There is one big step that will be helpful to you at any age, and that is developing a growth mindset. So buckle up, friends. Here we go. One of the first steps from the growth tribe is to identify what your current mindset is. Now, a word from our sponsor.
Are you looking for resources on senior living? Check out guideforseniorliving.com for our free online senior resource guide to find senior housing, care, and community connections. Start searching now at guide 4 guideforseniorliving.com. That's guideforseniorliving.com to find the contact information for senior housing, care, and community connections.
Now let's return to the podcast. A fixed mindset is where people start to believe that their intelligence and their abilities are what they are, and therefore no change can occur. They might have the expression or say this, I am who I am, and that is all that I am. No room for change, no room for growth. This is it, folks. Now, did anyone come to mind when I gave that example of a fixed mindset? You can usually spot people pretty easily. They tend to be a little negative. Well, a growth mindset is different. People with a growth mindset see challenges as opportunities, as problem solving, not discouragement and failure. A growth mindset requires that you learn to have patience with yourself, that growth is a process and not a destination. When I hurt my foot this fall, I needed to keep moving when I couldn't walk. So I looked on YouTube and I found this fabulous lady named Lauren, and she does an amazing chair yoga class. I call Lauren my new YouTube friend. And when we're doing an exercise that she knows may be a little bit more difficult with those with decreased mobility or flexibility, she says, remember, class, you do you. Do what you can do, but persevere because you will get stronger. And I appreciate that every time she says it. A growth mindset will focus on your positive actions rather than traits. Now, Polly did mention this. She said, maybe you're not a procrastinator, but your habits have led you to procrastination behaviors. And that is why you have to create a new prompt or a new tiny habit to start a new process. A growth mindset will seek out others who also have a growth mindset. Polly is my new 82-year-old friend who flew to New York for Christmas and then turned around 4 days later and flew back for an opera. Now, that is a growth mindset. I know young people who wouldn't do that. I asked Polly, would you be open to doing a podcast with me? And her reply was, well, I've never done that before, but I sure would like to try. After we did our podcast, I asked Polly, would you like to launch a YouTube channel with me? And without missing a beat, she said, sure, I'm up for that. Polly has a growth mindset, but she didn't get there by willpower or just having a positive attitude. She employs the tiny habits that then change behaviors and help us to defeat the old person thoughts that come into our mind, and also the thoughts that keep us from shying away from new challenges. A growth mindset will change your perspective on failure. When I was thinking about that, I thought to myself, I think age could be helpful with this part of the growth mindset process. When we were working or running a business, failure was not considered the road to success. In fact, it might mean loss of a job or loss of company and employees. My new perspective is, what do I have to lose? Why shouldn't I give it a try?
And yes, I may not be the best at it, but I think I'm willing to give it a go. A growth mindset creates a list of personal goals. And again, I want to encourage you to tune into our new YouTube video called Seniors Can We Talk? Because we talked about New Year's resolutions and why they fail. And guess what? If it is not your personal goal, if it is not something that you have created or that you have come up with, you don't have any skin in the game. And this is instant failure. And that is why National Quitters Day is January 10th, just 10 days into the new year. Last year, Discovery Senior Living wrote an article on the advantages of having a growth mindset. When you develop a growth mindset, you practice gratitude, and you usually develop a positive outlook, which helps you then to see opportunities where you can use your skills, and which in turn, when you use your skills, works to boost your sense of well-being. When you develop a growth mindset, you embrace the idea that there's always room for enhancement and improvement. You begin to use feedback as a tool for personal development, not as, oh, I failed and it was brought to somebody's attention and therefore I'm going to be written up. Ask questions so that you can learn from those who know what they're doing, especially in this digital age we live in, where we know that we don't have the skill set of those that are younger than us. I have to ask, how many of you have Googled something recently just to learn how to do something? That's what I'm talking about here. A growth mindset, looking for tools that will help you develop personally, and then learning from those who've been there, done that, or know more about the subject than you do. When you develop a growth mindset, you begin to accept that things will change. And nobody likes change. I'm going to say it. I resist change at all costs. But as you age, you know that things are going to change. And a growth mindset will really help you to accept the changes that are going to come and try to rock and roll or be flexible with them. A growth mindset gives you a sense of purpose and direction and keeps you motivated. Like Polly says, celebrate your progress. Celebrate you, no matter how the small achievement might be. Ring the bell. Do the victory dance. Give yourself that dopamine hit of success that brings you back for more feel-good feelings. Curiosity is a hallmark of a growth mindset. Stay curious about the world around you. Explore new subjects. Read books, take classes, and engage in lifelong learning. Your retirement years offer the perfect opportunity to dive into areas of interest you may not have had time for when you were working full time. Now, a word from our sponsor.
The Neptune Society is the oldest and largest cremation service in the United States. For over 50 years, the Neptune Society has been proud to provide signature service to the families they've served. With a prearranged funeral plan, you can declare what you want done at the time of your passing, pay for it in advance, and not leave your survivors with the cost of your final arrangements. Call 314-266-2898. That's 314-266-2898.
Let's return to the podcast. Remember that when you have a growth mindset, when you have challenges, and you will, the challenges are going to be opportunities. They are going to allow you to grow, and they will not be considered discouraging. You'll say to yourself, lesson learned, and then you'll be able to move on. A growth mindset will also help you foster relationships and learn to collaborate. This is a lesson that I learned from my mother's 102-year-old friend who was a salesperson. He was the best at fostering relationships, and I used to like to watch how he worked. And I'm not really sure how he did it, but I believe that he made a note of interests that people had after his conversation. So let's say your name was Bill, and let's say that you had had a conversation with this gentleman and you liked woodworking. And then the next time he saw you, he remembered that you liked woodworking, and he would figure out how to ask Bill about his hobby. For example, he might ask a question such as, tell me how you got started in woodworking. I know that you really like to do that. Who got you started in that? And then he might ask, where'd you get your first tool? He might go on to ask, what was the first piece you ever made? By the time he asked 2 or 3 questions, the conversation was definitely underway. And then he could just stand back and let the person talk and then get to know them better. He was an instant friend. He was interested in people. He was always curious about what they had to say and what they had to offer, and very curious about the things that they were interested in because he learned so much from listening to them. You will also, when you have a growth mindset, be willing to allow others to offer their knowledge, maybe their insight, maybe their wisdom. This exchange of ideas offers different perspectives. And how often have you learned something new about a familiar topic when someone shared from their perspective on a particular project or subject? A growth mindset will allow you to accept who you are, your perfections, your imperfections, and also accept others for who they are. I love when my husband and I travel, and I like to think we're always open to new conversations. I feel like seniors, all kinds of seniors, usually love to talk. And if they're traveling or sitting by themselves, it's usually easy to have a pick-up conversation. It might occur at a coffee shop. It might occur at dinner. It could be while buying tickets for an attraction. We might ask somebody where they like to go for date night or where to catch a quick lunch, one of their favorite spots. We have met such interesting people. We have had some pretty interesting conversations and learning what people are interested in, what they like. Maybe they've moved to a new town, and how did they get in that new town? Maybe they started a new career and they share about that. Those conversations would have never happened. We could have never had conversations like that when we were young with children on a schedule and too busy running after our kids to even have a thought of a conversation. A growth mindset to me says yes more than no. I have a friend that is spontaneous, but I'm a planner. But I've learned that when she calls, just say yes, because it's always going to be fun and quite possibly a new experience. Deborah Whitman, Chief Public Policy Officer at AARP, wrote that as she approached her 50th birthday, she started asking herself, how long will I live? Will I stay healthy? How long will I work? And who will care for me? To answer those questions, she wrote a book called The Second 50. answers to the big questions of midlife and beyond. She writes that a sense of purpose may help us live longer and that mindset matters. AARP, in conjunction with National Geographic, found that people in their 70s and 80s who view aging positively live more than 7 years longer than those with negative attitudes. When we take steps, maybe even adopt some tiny new habits that lead to different behaviors, we could reduce our dementia risk by 1/3. I want a growth mindset. How about you? Now, before I end this podcast, I always have a caregiver tip. Fatigue, irritability, neglecting your own personal needs, feeling like a failure, increased health issues, and difficulty concentrating are signs of caregiver burnout. Think about using new habits, new tiny habits to create new behaviors in your caregiving role. For example, when you feel irritable, your new tiny habit is to call a trusted friend who lets you vent and get it off your chest. If you're feeling like a failure, maybe your new tiny habit could be, when I feel like a failure, I'm going to hold up a stop sign, and then I'm going to celebrate me. Hashtag, I'm an awesome caregiver. Maybe when I get that feeling of overwhelmed, I'm going to start a new tiny habit. I'm going to get a piece of paper, make a list of what needs to get done and what can wait. Hey, look at me. I'm making progress. Tiny habits lead to new behaviors, but don't forget to celebrate you. Thanks for joining us today, and I look forward to being with you again. Thank you for joining me today. Please remember that this podcast is intended as guidance and not advice. Share this podcast with friends and family who are currently in crisis mode or with people who would like to start developing their own roadmap for aging in place. Listeners, if you would like a deeper dive into a topic discussed during a podcast, please subscribe to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers, where you will be able to access premium content. Or if you would like to suggest a topic for this podcast, please contact me at linda.agingstrategies@gmail.com. As always, I value the time you spend with me.